How's it going, everybody? This is Juansgalt with Crypto TV.
And we have got quite an experience this last week. I'm going to be breaking down, doing a quick recap of the Bitcoin Cash fork, the Bcash split into BCH, ABC, and BCH, SV, and all the Hashwars madness that we just witnessed and will continue to witness probably for the next few months. It's going to be a slow and steady bleed of wealth and the slow death of this fork, the Bitcoin Cash fork. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so the 15th, the fork day for Bitcoin Cash began with a massive correction or price dump on the Bitcoin price. 88,000 Bitcoin were basically sold on the market, and people were freaking out. It broke below $6,000, and well, the price went down $1,000 in total. You can see it right here. Now, there's been quite a bit of speculation as to why that happened. People are saying that, well, first, there's like this whole branch of FUD that I won't get into, which I believe is complete nonsense. But that Satoshi Nakamoto is dumping their coins, or going to dump their coins. Now, I think this is all coming from Wright, who is pretending to be Satoshi Nakamoto for a long time and has failed to prove it cryptographically multiple times. So I think that's all a lie and a video for another time. But it is true that there's a war going on inside of Bitcoin Cash, and this war is being waged between about 4 millionaires, at least the four high-profile millionaires that were self-made, or at least made, not all self-made, but made from the Bitcoin bull market. These guys are OGs that were very successful, very competent, but have, in my opinion, and certainly in the opinion of most Bitcoin core supporters, have become blinded with their success and to some degree arrogance, or at least they're wrong. I'm going to try to be neutral on this because there's probably new people coming in and they don't know exactly what's going on. So here we have Jihan. He was the co-founder and of Bitmain, one of the biggest ASIC manufacturers, biggest manufacturer for a long time. This guy has a lot of hashing power and probably a lot of money. Calvin Ayre, he is a multimillionaire from before Bitcoin, and then he got into crypto back in the day. Legend goes that Eric Voorhees, the guy behind Shapeshift, actually sold an earlier project of his called Satoshi Dice to Calvin Ayre, which was dependent on on-chain scaling. And then with the Bitcoin path taking a off-chain scaling approach, that Satoshi Dice play became kind of mute on top of Bitcoin Core. And that's one of the reasons Calvin Ayre is pissed at Bitcoin and is trying to run his own on-chain Bitcoin blockchain thing. This trade for Satoshi Dice was massive, right? So I'm just kind of breaking down some of the players and the motivation, right? By the way, Jihan Wu and Bitmain actually were the people that designed Bitcoin Cash. Like, you can go back to bitmain.com and find the post around the fork last year, around August, when Bitcoin Cash forked of Bitcoin, that breaks down the specs of how the Bitcoin Cash hard fork would work and what a user activated hard fork would be like. This is the father of Bitcoin Cash, and obviously Roger Ver helped quite a bit. It's a match made in heaven. And of course we have Roger Ver, infamous, and well, the guy needs no introduction. He's one of the perhaps the most controversial character in the crypto industry right now. Once called Bitcoin Jesus, then called Bitcoin Judas, and now I guess the king of Bcash. I don't know. He's very wealthy in Bitcoin as well, and they are all, like, Jihan and Roger Ver are on the Bitcoin Cash side, and then Calvin Ayre and Craig Wright, who I haven't introduced yet. This guy is a piece of work. Mr. Professor Faustus on Twitter, also known as Fake Satoshi, actually blocked me on Twitter, which is why I have to go to incognito, which is a badge of honor. This guy basically is the face of this fork from Bitcoin Cash. How much money he has, who knows? He brags, he claims to have a lot. He probably has some money. He's been around the crypto for a long time, but he is definitely not Satoshi, and he's definitely being held by Calvin. So he's just kind of like the mastermind, or at least the marketing branch of this operation. And there's two companies behind it called CoinGeek and Nchain that are basically behind what is known today as Bitcoin SV or BCH SV, which is the Satoshi Vision fork branch of the Bitcoin Cash fork. And then the other one on Roger Ver's side is Bitcoin Cash ABC or BCH ABC, which is, you know, Roger Jihan and the whole Bitcoin Cash group. Great. So they're all basically selling Bitcoin, apparently, or in theory, in order to fund this Hashwar. What is this Hashwar? Well, basically, a proof of work war for being the longest fake Bitcoin, the longest Bitcoin Cash, started on the 15th. Originally, Craig Wright had a great deal more hashing power, as you can see by this image that I took on one of my tweets. And Bitcoin ABC was on a significant minority, even though they had a lot more network nodes and significantly more company support. This lasted about an hour, like maybe half an hour or so after the fork began, after the flag date, the block where everything began, and that was on the 15th at some point. And then Bitcoin.com basically added a lot more hashing power, and then SV's hashing power kind of vanished. Like half of SV's hashing power kind of vanished, and we still haven't seen it yet since that. And there's a few theories as to where it went. Now, if you look at this is a great tweet by Jimmy Song to sort of illuminate the scale of this conflict. You can read this, right? BC has 6.5 exahashes at the time of posting, and SV has 3.6, and Bitcoin has 45 exahashes. So compared to Bitcoin's hashing power, this is practically irrelevant. This is a small skirmish on the sidelines of the industry, and Bitcoin doesn't really even notice it. However, this is spending $500 a day on each side of opportunity cost, of profitability cost for this miners, because they're SHA-256 miners. So these are miners that can be mining on top of Bitcoin and profiting, especially when the price just corrected. And well, I mean, maybe some miners are going offline. I think the hashing power of Bitcoin has dropped a little bit. Bottom line is Bitcoin is a lot more profitable this past week, in part because of this conflict, than it was before it. And anyway, we have these 4 millionaires dumping money into this conflict, which, from the Bitcoin perspective, is quite good. Let them keep going. When your enemy is making a mistake, don't interrupt them. Right. The interesting thing about this too is that all that money is going to either buy or use proof of work, like SHA-256 proof of work hardware, and that's going to raise demand for the SHA-256 hardware, which is going to raise supply, which is in a long enough tail of economic effects, is going to create more SHA-256 hashing power, which just strengthens Bitcoin as the dominant SHA-256 player. So Bitcoin is incredibly anti-fragile, and I think this is, every time something like this happens, we get, greater. I feel, I see way more arguments for the strength and the solidity of Bitcoin. Now, at this point, at some point right after the fork, somehow Roger Ver and Bitcoin.com added a great deal more hashing power to their mining pool, and this is really interesting. This is a really interesting moment, and I hadn't realized this about the way that Bitcoin mining works, or mining in the industry, in the crypto industry works in general, is that you don't really want to throw all the hashing power you have at a given cryptocurrency. You want to throw as much as possible to be profitable in mine blocks without moving the difficulty up too much, right? Because if you throw everything you have at it, the difficulty adjusts upwards, and now your hashing power is less profitable. And so there's and this is explained by Alex Petrov, who runs Bitfury, who's one of the biggest miners, sort of private miners in the industry right now. And so what that means is that the Jihan Wu and Roger Ver and probably anybody that's a big miner in the crypto industry has hashing power waiting on the sidelines that's unused, that's turned off, ready to be turned on in case the difficulty goes up, so they can match and continue profitability at a rate that is sustainable. And so it looks like they brought on some of that hashing power into this conflict, which is why the Bitcoin Cash hashing power went from what I showed you on my image earlier, right, which is something like this, right, where they had, you know, significantly lower portion of the hashing power to what we see now, which is a much higher portion of the hashing power compared to Bitcoin SV. So this is Bitcoin SV, this is ABC. However, there's also hashing power here that, as far as I've checked, we are missing. And where the hashing power went, well, the theory is that Fake Satoshi and Calvin Ayre are shadow mining Bitcoin ABC. And what that means is they're mining on top of the ABC chain, and they're trying to catch up. They're trying to mine a longer chain, at least by 6 blocks or 10 blocks, in order to launch an attack that Fake Satoshi has dubbed Satoshi Shotgun. Satoshi Shotgun would be mining secretly on top of your own blocks. If you have enough hashing power, more than 51% of the hashing power, you can do this over a long enough period. Launching out mining ABC secretly and then launching those blocks, which would effectively invalidate all the previous blocks that Bitcoin.com has been mining and spending money mining, and reorg the blockchain, and then a bunch of transactions would go back to the memory pool, which would, you know, be pretty stacked. And it's a kind of thing to destabilize the system and hurt the bottom line of miners, and then you can do double spend attacks on top of that and hit exchanges. This is it's a very catastrophic, sort of like chaotic attack that can be launched on top of a proof of work chain if you have more than half, maybe 60% of the hashing power. You know, part of the thing is like you need to be able to go to mine ahead at least 6 blocks, maybe 10 blocks, in order for people to believe that it's safe. And then you launch the attack, and now there's chaos in the markets, right? And so as you can see here, this is really interesting. You can see that this is the moment where everything forked, and the yellow line is Bitcoin ABC, and the red line is Bitcoin SV. And the hashing power of SB has always been lower because they don't really have that much competition. So the difficulty goes down, and it's better for them for the difficulty to go down enough so that they can put some of the other hashing power into Bitcoin ABC and continue to mine this Satoshi Shotgun. And this is exactly why Bitcoin ABC added a huge amount of hashing power here, or at least that's in theory why they did it, in order to make it much more difficult for Bitcoin SV to launch this attack early on. Now, Craig Wright, who you can't really believe anything this guy says, but he's saying stuff anyway, he says that, you know, and of course he would say this, right? It's very much self-serving, and everything that he says is self-serving. He says that, well, this is a marathon, not a sprint, and alluding to the fact that he's going to launch a very long reorg further ahead. We will see if he can do it. So far, I have seen no evidence that these guys are either technically competent or are actually capable of launching the attack or are successful at all the claims that they're making. All I see is a lot of barking and a lot of bluffing. But there's certainly a possibility that it's true, and we'll just have to wait and see for a few weeks. Who knows how long this will take, but as you can see, basically here the Bitcoin ABC hashing power goes up dramatically, and here it stabilizes for SV, and then when it starts to crash here, SV starts to go up for some reason. So they're playing a hashing power rate, hash war that's sort of regulating, and there's a good chance that there's a shadow mining attack, a Satoshi Shotgun attack in the background. Now, as you can see here, the hashing power of ABC starts going up again, and SV starts going down, which means maybe they're redirecting hashing power to the shadow mining again in order to throw the Satoshi Shotgun attack. So it's definitely very interesting from the perspective of understanding proof of work attacks in the Bitcoin-like network with SHA-256. And these are characters that are infamous and they're going to be around for a while unless they end up in prison for some reason. And well, I mean, it's very very educational, and I think it shows us the potential chaos that can happen in altcoin networks, cryptocurrency networks that don't have dominance in their own proof of work algorithm, and not to mention even proof of stake algorithms and consensus networks. That kind of conflict, we haven't seen empirical evidence of that, to my knowledge, yet. But I suppose there's a chance it'll come in the coming years. Okay, so Bitcoin is 100% more profitable than Bitcoin Cash these days, thanks to this Hashwar. And one of the results of this threat, the Satoshi Shotgun attack, is that Bitcoin BC, according to our Bitcoin, and I don't know exactly how secretly this was done. Perhaps there's conversations inside Bitcoin Cash and RBTC. I am not aware of those. But bottom line is Bitcoin ABC added a checkpoint to their blockchain, which basically says that any reorg that goes below a certain block that the Bitcoin Cash developers arbitrarily define is invalid. That's a checkpoint, and they added that to the Bitcoin ABC code, and they're saying they can add another one later on if there is a reorg launched at ABC after that checkpoint, and which basically means that Bitcoin Cash is centralized. It means that the human intelligence is determining which chain is valid, not proof of work, and not the integrity of the accounting per se. Even though the accounting probably continues to have integrity, you know, which means that there's no arbitrary inflation or anything like that. It means that the human hand is touching and manipulating the history of the blocks. It's not happening in a distributed sense. The RBTC people, the Bitcoin Cash people pointed out that Satoshi Nakamoto actually had checkpoint on top of Bitcoin back in 2010 or so, and that seems to be true. But then again, in 2010 or so, Bitcoin was arguably centralized because Satoshi was still around. These cryptocurrencies are like children. They have a developmental path, and they all started from the idea of some madman somewhere that has a great vision and enough money and enough charm and enough clout, enough sometimes technical ability to start creating this new network. And it takes a long time. It takes years to decentralize it, and it takes serious skill. I know people with incredible projects that have a really hard time decentralizing themselves. They have to learn to outsource tasks that they're not great at. They have to give up power. They have to allocate responsibility to other people, and that's a very difficult thing. And it takes time to do and to find the talent, to attract the talent, and to create something that is larger than yourself. And so, yeah, Bitcoin was centralized at one point, and it was centralized when Satoshi was around, which is why he left. And wise man for leaving, wise group of people for leaving, and which means that Bitcoin Cash is effectively, officially, undeniably centralized right now. So this is probably the best thing that came out of this conflict. If you were a Bitcoin supporter, this is incredible. If you're a Bitcoin Cash supporter, I am sorry for your loss. This is a real mess, and well, I hope that you will learn get some interesting lessons and find some value from this conflict. It has been quite a show, and it'll probably continue to happen. Now, Calvin Ayre posted an article on CoinGeek, which is basically Craig Wright's propaganda arm and Calvin Ayre's propaganda arm that said that they were going to launch a stress test today at 12 UTC, which already passed, which would over a full day deliver 24 million transactions during the whole day of today. So far, I am not seeing that kind of volume. I am not seeing that kind of memory pool action on Bitcoin Cash. Maybe people can correct me if I'm having incorrect sources. We can look at Cash the Coin, the dance here, and I'm not seeing massive blocks. It's just 3 or 4 megabyte blocks. This is nothing out of the ordinary for Bitcoin Cash as far as my experience looking at it. there's certainly big blocks on sort of Bitcoin SV, 31 megabyte each, but they're nothing to what they're supposed to be able to do. I haven't even talked about what their technical justifications for this conflict are, mainly because I don't think they matter really. Only for certain interesting and entertaining reasons, which is that fake Satoshi and Craig Wright and Calvin Ayre are now big blockers compared to the Bitcoin Cash people who are saying, no, let's keep it under 32 megabytes. So the Bitcoin Cash people have found themselves arguing small blocks compared to Bitcoin Cash. And that is, man, that is just quite a sight to see. So, yeah, that's the bottom line. There's some other interesting news happening, and maybe I'll make another video about this if people are interesting. This whole sort of side story about Satoshi dumping his coins in a new Twitter account that started posting things called @Satoshi, which is total fun and sounds and echoes like Craig Wright. So I believe this is like a different, like a sidearm of the propaganda arm of Craig Wright, which I believe is probably, well, he's definitely not acting alone. Let's just say that. So anyway, this has been longer than I expected, and so I'll just leave it at this. Let me know what you think. Did I get anything wrong? If I did, bring some sources. And anyway, I'm really interested in having a conversation about this. So let me know what you think. If there's anybody that you think I should interview or have a conversation with about the Hashwars, let me know. I'm looking forward to getting some valuable information out of this, even though I'm starting to get bored with the topic. But I will definitely update if there's any big events that happen, like Satoshi Shotgun actually happening. So that should be entertaining. All right, thanks for watching. You guys have an awesome day, and peace out.